Could you take us through those years, how you ended up forming Mikdash Melech? Who is some of the other rabbis that you crossed paths with in those early years? Everybody likes to hear the names of those great men that started out with you back then, and then we all want to know how Mikdash Melech became what it became.
Okay, chronologically, I started off in the community with the rabbinate, becoming the rabbi of Bnei Yosef, which at that time in 1968 was called Magen David of Ocean Parkway. That was the original name. And then Eddie Sitt alav shalom renamed the shul that he built Bnei Yosef, mainly in memory of his father, Yosef Sitt HaKohen, right? It wasn't until 72, which was like about 4 years later, that I started to realize my long-standing dream of having a Sephardic yeshiva, and started with a handful of boys, together with my brother-in-law, Rabbi David Lopian Shlita, and later on, another brother-in-law, Yidullah Chaim, Rabbi Yerucham Kaplan, alav shalom. And so we started off actually in Bnei Yosef for a short time, and then we were able to buy the building on Ocean Parkway, which at that time was a nursing home that was not functioning at that time. And to talk about real estate, right? People can't believe that in those years, 1970, 72, that you could buy a building like that for $112,500. And we still needed to take a mortgage.
Because it was a lot of money then. 112,000 was, it's all relevant, right?
Yeah. But we think fondly of many of the founders. And I always remember Joe R. Beebe, alav shalom. He was one of the signers on the mortgage, and Isaac Mizrahi, alav shalom, and others really that gave us that push. And there's a nice picture of myself and Rabbi Lopian sitting with Cham Ovadia Zatzal, right? I still had a red beard at that time, but that was a meeting in the home of Isaac Mizrahi, alav shalom, that where we got the blessings of Cham Ovadia to start off. So we started off with what we would call the Asara Rishonim, the 10 original Talmidim, and some of them, of course, are very famous in our community, such as Rabbi David Ozeri and Rabbi David Cohen, Rabbi Shlomo Wadish, and the others that we never had another group like that. The 10 pioneers that we started off in 1972, and for a while we were in what they call the Ger Shtibel of Rabbi Tursky alav shalom on Ocean Parkway, and then finally in our own home at 1326 Ocean Parkway. And of course, a number of years later, the idea developed of having a branch in Yerushalayim.
Wow!
Because we saw that a lot of our young men were going with the intent of having a year or two in Yerushalayim and in Eretz Israel. And in many cases, after a couple of months, they would come back because they just didn't find the right environment that was welcoming to them as far as their customs and comfort zone in the Sephardic experience. So we thought that it was a very important resource to try to have these boys and really give them the opportunity of a yeshiva experience,
yeah,
in Eretz HaKodesh, with all of the background, the Sephardic menu and the Sephardic tefillot and so forth. And here we are.
So, Rabbi, it's similar to this today. They finish high school, and then you wanted them to go for a year, possibly 2 years, to Ir HaKodesh, to Jerusalem. Correct. To learn, right? It was the same as Correct, it is today, yes. Post-high school.
Yeah, post-high school.
Rabbi, how common was that, or uncommon, for parents way back then to say, I'm going to trust you, I'm going to send my son after high school versus all the other things that they would have wanted for their boys?
Not all that common, not all that common. And that's why we started off with very small numbers. We started off with small numbers, but as time went on, it became more accepted. And in fact, in the early years, we would have on average a third of our enrollment B'nai Ashkenaz, because there weren't too many American Ashkenaz yeshivot in Israel, right? Now we hardly have any because the Ashkenazim have their own.
We understand.
They don't need us.
We surely understand that.
We understand it.
But we still stand for who we are and what we are as Sephardic yeshivot. And I must say to you, Rabbi, that we are all, the whole community, so proud of you that you were a pioneer in starting in Brooklyn, not being afraid. It wasn't common in those years. And then to open up Mikdash Melech in Jerusalem and have boys experience what has turned out to be what I'm hearing, now being close to you and your son, Rabbi Abraham, the greatest year of my life. It changed my life. I don't know what I would have been without it. I don't know who I would have been. I don't know what would have come of me. And I hear dozens and dozens of remarks like that from these young men that have come back, changed their lives, given back to the community. And it's just, it's all, Baruch Hashem, to your credit and the Kadosh Baruch Hu for giving you that insight, the fortitude to trust.
Correction. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Only. Okay, only.